With rescue rats, you do have a higher chance of having rats with health problems, and this is because most rescue rats originally came from large pet shops, or the parents came from pet shops and the babies were accidental litters. So you don't have the knowledge of the genetics, and also they were bred for profit and not for health. So to get the best chance of a healthy rat, you do need to go to a good registered breeder who's committed not just to producing pretty rats with lovely temperaments, but also with the best possible health. But there's never going to be 100% guarantee with the health of rats, and rats do seem to suffer terribly badly, especially in older age. They have so many health conditions they can catch. But so you are going into the unknown with your rescues. You really are. You may be lucky and have a rat from a pet shop that lives a long and happy life, or you may be terribly unlucky with your rescues, like we've been with our older group of boys who have the most terrible problems, which are genetic problems with their health. So whenever you get rats, it's something always to think about, you know, that can I afford the vet bills? Can I afford the medicine? Do I have the time to care for my rats properly and give them all the attention they need when they get older? So I'm just going to talk through some of the things that we actually use for our rats for medicines. We have lots of these little white bowls here, which are the Mason Cash bowls. They're available from places like Pets at Home, and most pet shops sell them. They're around about £1.50 each, and they're really useful for mixing up the weight up baby berry and other little bits of food for sick rats. We have some plastic spoons. These are toddler size from Boots. They also come in a smaller baby size. Now they should be safe for your rats because they're safe for babies, but we don't recommend that you let your rats play with them. They're not toys. And if you've got several rats on similar medicines that look the same when you're mixing them up, it's very easy to confuse medicines if you're mixing them all up in a food to feed to your rats. So you can write with a marker pen the rat's name on the actual handle of the spoon. We do still use stainless steel spoons for crushing tablets. You can get pill crushers, but I've found that having 2 teaspoons, slightly different sizes, with a smaller one on top, and although teaspoons should be a standard size, if you get the cheaper teaspoons, they are small, considerably smaller than the more expensive teaspoons. So I find crushing them is the best way between 2 teaspoons. Just being very careful to do it slowly so you don't lose half the tablet. Now you can buy little pill crushers and they are quite useful as well. We did used to have one, but I can't get the top off it now, so I don't use the pill crusher very often. Haven't actually seen it for a while, so I can't show it to you today. We always keep spare plates that just belong to the rats themselves. We keep all the rats' cutlery and plates separate from ours, and they're washed separately. It's just a basic hygiene thing. We have our syringes here at the back, which we buy in boxes of 100 from Amazon. We use different syringe for each medicine, and because we're doing so many medicines at the moment, it'd be very easy to confuse syringes, and they've got to be washed and dried between use anyway. We are just using a new one each day for the medicines. And we also have different things to mix our medicines with. I haven't got everything here, but we most commonly will use the weight up baby berry medicine, porridge. It's really brilliant from the Rat Warehouse. Now remember that when you mix anything with hot water, you should never use hot water from the tap because it's contaminated. It's been around your heating system. You should only use hot water from the kettle, which has been boiled. Very important to boil the water and cool the water. So you don't need the water to be really hot, burning like boiling hot, but you need hot water from the kettle, and then allow the porridge to cool. As the porridge cools down, it will thicken. Now with sick rats, you need to add more water and make it quite runny, because apart from the fact they can't eat the cloggy foods, you're also getting some extra fluid into them when you use something like the weight up baby berry. We do sometimes use bio yogurt, which also we can water down for very sick rats, and that's quite good for sick rats with bad infections, but not if they're on doxycycline, because some medicines will interact with foods. So you need to go to a website which will tell you, you put in the name of the medicine and it will tell you if it interacts with other medicines or if the foods that you mustn't have with it. Now, whenever we mix water down anything or make any food for the rats, it's always with water that's boiled in the kettle and cooled down, and then we leave that until it's just lukewarm, and we will test it carefully on the wrist or on your lip, but don't actually use just your fingers or your hands because they're not so sensitive. They're as sensitive as somewhere like the inside of your wrist. It's very important not to give hot food to your rat because they have very sensitive mouths, and obviously if you go and burn their mouth, they're going to be in an even worse way. So just be very careful when you mix any medicines. We've also used things like the prawn cracker, Sharwood's prawn cracker, for a drop of Baytril, which works quite well for fussy rats. Some of the medicines like the doxycycline and azithromycin actually taste and smell really horrible. So for those we would use some of the Trixie red berry paste, malt paste, but again that's thick and cloggy. So we would mix that with some of the Vita Coco coconut oil, which is actually a solid in there. You can use a warm teaspoon and that will actually turn it into a liquid, and that's also very good for rats that can't really eat much because it's a fairly bland, but they do really like the coconut oil. So I think the most important thing when mixing medicines for rats is nothing thick and cloggy. We will only syringe medicines if the rat is so sick they're unable to take the medicine any other way, and that's because everything we do with our rats is to avoid stress and to treat them with compassion. And it would be like if you've ever tried to give medicine to a child that doesn't want it, they can get terribly upset, and it's the same with rats. So if you do have to syringe, our syringes are mainly just used for measuring medicine, but if you do have to syringe medicine to a rat, then make sure the berry weight up or the bio yogurt or whatever you're using is very sort of thin, that you mix the medicine in just a tiny bit because they may not take very much, so you need to get the medicine into them in the first couple of drops. You never put the syringe straight down the back of into the front of the mouth towards the back of the throat, because it's very easy to choke rats, especially weak rats who are sick. So the syringe goes into the side of the mouth very gently, never force it. You don't want to cause an injury or pain to your rat. Very slowly, and have practice with some water in the syringe or some food in the syringe so you know how much pressure to use on the actual plunger, but very slowly, one little drop at a time of the medicine and food into the mouth. Let the rat swallow that before you put the next drop in, and just be very kind and gentle with your rats when they're feeling so unwell, because you know they need your love and attention, and if you stress them out they're going to refuse to take anything, and if you can't get the medicines into them they're going to end up in a really bad way. So let's put those back for a minute. We also have some yogurt drops for those that are well enough. There's a little treat for afterwards. So they're just any yogurt drops that are suitable for small animals. And I'm just going to talk you through my actual medicines. Let's bring them round to the front here. The most common thing you'll get offered for your rats is going to be Baytril. Now, Baytril is a liquid. It doesn't particularly taste nice. It doesn't always work. If you've been using it for a while, then it's not really going to work on its own. So you will probably have to add some Ronaxan or doxycycline. And that together, that combination does work quite well. But you mustn't use Baytril for rats during the rapid growth period. And some vets will tell you that's up to 3 months, but rats do grow quite rapidly up to 5 months, so we will always be more cautious and not give Baytril for the first 5 months unless it is an emergency, and if that's the only thing you can get hold of, then you will have to use it, because it's more important to save your rat's life than to withhold antibiotics. Now, the problem with Baytril in rapid growth period is that it damages the cartilage. It affects the growth of the cartilage, and you don't want rats with problems with their bones when they're older. So that is the most common medicines that you'll be offered. Now, if you've had to use them a few times or they don't work, or your rats are very young, then you can try azithromycin. I don't have any at the moment because my rats are all older, and azithromycin doesn't work as well with older rats. The thing we're using most often is Veriflox. Now, this is actually the cat Veriflox, and it is quite strong. It is quite expensive, and you have to use it within 3 months of opening. The other medicines have a much longer lifespan on them, but we're finding that's very good. But for big rats like Pippin, he was over 900 grams when he was on his treatment. He did need a dose of 3 times the recommended amount for rats. So it's very important with all medicines that your vet will weigh the rats and calculate the correct dose for you, which is why I'm not going to go through all the different doses that you can get. Another thing that we always keep in our first aid box is Metacam. We've got the one for dogs, and it's an anti-inflammatory painkiller. It has its uses, but you have to be very careful if you have rats that have kidney problems, and if you have older rats that are on this for arthritis, or their hind legs are starting to go and they're in pain, then you need to monitor them very carefully to make sure they don't start to get any problems with their kidneys. Now, another tablet we have to have is the glipizide, and that is for our diabetic rat wash. Now, the reason we found the Vita Coco coconut oil is my friend Sarah mentioned it, because we were looking for something to mix medicines in that didn't have high sugar content. So these glipizide tablets have been really, really good, and I'm going to do an update on Wash and his current treatment and how it's working. But with those, you know, he's going to be on those for life now. That is his treatment for life. The coconut oil, just mention again with that, we used to have Dermagel. Oops, I can't see it now. We used to have Dermagel, but for dry skin, but we've replaced that with the coconut oil, because we've actually found that that does a really good job for dry skin. The other rats will try and lick it off your rat that's got dry skin, but the Dermagel's around about £12–14 for a tube. And the coconut oil, there's several different makes, but that's readily available in the supermarkets, and we always watch out for it to be on offer. So that's basically the things that we're using currently for our rats. Now, one other question that comes up quite frequently is when your rat is very fussy and won't take the medicine because they can detect there is something nasty in it. The only thing you can do is to constantly change the food that you put the medicine in. There's lots of different things you can try, and providing it's not a food that's on the restricted, dangerous for rats, then you just have to keep trying things. In an emergency, you can use a little bit of seedless jam, a tiny bit of honey, just whatever you can find that is not dangerous for rats. The most important thing is if you use anything thick like the red berry paste, that you mix it up with some oil or something to make it a bit runnier. Nothing thick and cloggy. Sick rats cannot cope with thick cloggy foods, and sometimes you just have to be smart and just keep thinking of different combinations. The main thing is you can relax the rules on sugar for a bit while your rats are sick. We restrict sugar during the first 5 months because of the link with tumours and cancer, but sick rats and old rats, relax the rules and just, you know, let them have what they can safely have to get the medicine inside them.